Hello and welcome to all of our Gold viewers who are here with us today. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and MC here at Gold. And today we are with Professor Mark Johnson, and we're going to talk about the upcoming presentation titled Human Milk Fortification, Meeting the Unique Growth Needs of Preterm Infants. Welcome back, Mark.
Thanks. It's nice to be back.
It's wonderful to have you back here, back by popular demand. And this time you're part of the add-on package for our lactation conference. The add-on package is titled Breastfeeding Solutions for Preterm and Late Preterm Infants, and that's a lecture pack. So first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a professor, you're, of course, a lecturer, you do research, and you work in the field. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I'm a neonatologist by background. In that my training, I trained in the south of England, and that's where I work. I work in Southampton, which is at the very sort of bottom of England, where it's allegedly sunnier than the north. I think it's probably about the same. And I, throughout my kind of medical training, I did some research in nutrition. I actually did my original bit of research in sort of improving practice and implementation science around trying to get people to feed premature babies along the guidelines and get them to grow like they would if they were in the womb. So I learned a bit about nutrition, but I also learned a bit about how you get people to do things in the clinical setting and follow guidelines and do as they're told, which we know is quite challenging. And since then, I've been involved in lots of similar research around nutrition, a little bit of NEC research, and some stuff about breast milk and fortification, some of which I'll talk about today. And recently, it's relatively recently, it's been about a month. I've got a position as Professor of Child Health in the University of Southampton, having previously just been a lecturer and working in my research. So that was great.
Oh, wonderful. Congratulations to that new position then. Fantastic. So talking about growth, and you're an expert there in infant nutrition and these little preterm babies. Can you describe a little bit to our viewers what specific growth targets are there for infants, preterm infants? Because that's a little bit different to those, who are growing in utero, right? I mean, so these little ones have to do their own little, have to make up quite a bit of growth outside of the womb, and that has probably very specific targets and needs as well.
I mean, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure I can give you a complete answer to it because I think it's relatively unsure, and I'll talk a bit about that in my talk as well. But I think at the moment we assume we want these babies to grow like they would if they were still in the womb. So all of our growth curves are based on in utero growth, either by sort of studies based on in utero scans of babies, or more commonly birth weights of babies that have been born premature. So you measure all the babies that are born early, and you join up the lines, and you make a growth chart. So that's based on the thought that they should grow like they should in the womb, which makes sense, doesn't it? I
Yeah.
guess. But we don't know that that's the right pattern of growth for them. We know that if you grow really rapidly, as a slightly older child, it puts you more at risk of disease later in life. So people worry about that. Are we making these babies grow too quickly? And other people have done research that shows if you get them to grow well, they do better from a developmental point of view. So there's kind of this trade-off between heart and head, as some people have put it, cleverer people than me. Um,
Yeah.
and and so there's different opinions on this, and there is growing evidence about what might or might not be good. But I guess we still don't have any firm, really big studies. For me, it makes sense that we know that the mechanism for um, having higher risk of diabetes and heart disease if you grow quickly is because you have to catch up. So that rapid catching up, trying to catch up on growth you might have missed out on seems to be the problem. So therefore, if you did make these babies grow better in that early period when they're in nativity, it might mitigate that, but that remains to be seen. But that's
That
kind of where
remains
I
to be
stand
seen.
on it.
That is quite fascinating, right? I mean, you think like this is something we know a lot about growth, right? And infants, and still there's these different opinions out and different and more research to be done. So I think you still have work cut out for you there, right?
Definitely. Keep me busy for a while, hopefully.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about fortification. Now, this is, of course, a presentation for our lactation crowd, like lactation care providers, of course, So we all know breast milk. Breast milk is, of course, human milk is, of course, a wonderful, wonderful, that's what our little ones should be getting because of all the nutrients and macronutrients and micronutrients. So why fortifications? What kind of nutrients are missing for the preterm infant in human milk?
So there's quite a few, both macronutrients, sort of the big molecules that you need in big amounts, and the micronutrients that you need less of. Lots of them are lacking in breast milk for what we think preterm infants need. But remembering again that what we think they need is based on the assumption we want them to grow like they would if they were in the womb. So if you want to achieve that kind of growth, and that period in your life is the period when you grow the fastest, faster than when you're a teenager, you
Mm,
grow in the womb. And so to get those patterns of growth, what you need lots of particularly is protein to make new tissue, and energy to help build that tissue and to meet your energy requirements because they're higher when you're a preterm baby. So energy and protein are the big things that you need more of that than you can provide in breast milk, but lots of other things like minerals, calcium, phosphate to make your bones, micronutrients like vitamins. These are all both relatively lacking in terms of what we think preterm infants need, but also preterm infants are born before that last trimester of pregnancy when you would
mhm.
store lots of those smaller nutrients up. So you're also trying to replenish those stores as well as meet their needs. So it's complicated, but certainly minerals and energy and protein are the big ticket
Right.
items probably that you get in Fortifier. So by
Mhm.
adding the Fortifier to the breast milk, you improve its nutritional content up towards those recommended amounts. And if you just feed plain breast milk alone, you won't come close, and you'll particularly fall short on energy and protein.
Mhm.
Um, that's where the babies that don't have Fortify don't grow as rapidly as those that are not.
Mhm. Where are we now with the makeup of these fortifiers? Where would you say is there? Are we still like? I know we have come, and there's wonderful things out there, but how do you see? Where do you see it going from now?
So one of the other things I mentioned in my talk that's a growing area of sort of clinical practice now, as well as research, is the idea of sort of targeted or adjustable fortification. So,
Mhm.
in the old days, and still in lots of units, including my own, you put in an amount of fortifier in the breast milk according to the manufacturer's instructions. But we know that everybody's milk is different, not just between individual mothers, but also in between day to day, even
Right.
perhaps morning to afternoon. And so if you were to measure a mother's milk and then fortify it accordingly to that to meet the recommended targets, you are more likely to meet those targets, both in terms of getting up to the amounts, but also making sure you're not giving too much for those mothers who are producing particularly highly nutritious breast milk. You might overshoot those recommendations.
Mm.
So that concept is growing in popularity, and it makes sense, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think anyone's yet they're not doing it expression by expression. We're not measuring milk every time a mother expresses because that's clearly logistically challenging, but certainly doing it 2, 3 times a
Mm.
week to get a feel for where things are to try and adjust is what people who do that practice are doing. And I think it is growing in popularity.
That's wonderful. I can see that is a logistical challenge for sure, but the targeted approach, it seems so right. As you said, even, human milk is different depending on what day or time, or if it's for a young infant or an older one. I mean, it's constantly evolving and changing. So, it makes sense to kind of adapt to that, which of course has, of course, challenges, but it's nice to hear that this is in the works. Are there any concerns or potential risk or side effects with these fortifiers?
I think that's always been a problem. Different people have different attitudes, and certainly in the UK, we're compared to places like the US, we're perhaps more cautious with our fortifier as a nation, for example. So we
Mhm.
fortify a bit later, and some units still don't use fortifier at all because they worry about some of the things that it's been associated with. And I guess the biggest thing it's been associated with is a potential risk of necrotizing enterocolitis.
Mhm.
Um, I'll talk about this a bit in my talk as well, but we there's no hard evidence that Fortify does increase the risk of NEC, but I think a lot of the concerns currently revolve around the fact that most fortifiers are made from cow's milk, and the concern that it's the cow's milk, particularly the cow's milk protein, that might
Right.
be the cause, one of the things that might precipitate necrotizing enterocolitis. Um, and so there's a school of thought that says if you use milk made from human fortifiers, that might improve that situation. Although that's not been borne out in recent studies, but there's
Mhm.
probably more work to do.
Mm, interesting. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, yeah, it's again more research needed right there. So, Mark, before I let you go, what are your hopes that our viewers will take away from your presentation here?
So I think sort of my key messages are that it's these babies, if we want them to grow like they do in the womb, and I think that's probably where we stand, despite the controversies that I've already mentioned. Then we need to get more nutrition into them. We absolutely want to do that with breast milk because we know that's the best milk for a variety of reasons, including the risk of next class enterocolitis. But we can't do it with breast milk alone, and so you have to add some fortifier. And so adding that fortifier and adding it at appropriate time and in appropriate amounts, perhaps by using strategies like targeted fortification, is going to improve that nutrition and then improve the growth. And you would hope that would improve outcomes for the babies.
Well, thank you so very much, Professor Mark Johnson, for being here with us today, talking about the new and upcoming presentation here for the Gold Lactation Online Conference of 2025. It's always a pleasure to have you, Mark. Thank you for being here today.
No problem. Thanks again for having me.
And some information for our viewers now. If you are curious now about this presentation and all the other presentation in our Gold Lactation Online Conference, we invite you to go to goldlactation.com to find out more. And we hope to see everyone at the conference. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and have a lovely rest of your day wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.